There comes a moment in the life of every nation when silence becomes betrayal, when obedience turns into suicide, and bowing to hands that choke you is no longer diplomacy, it is surrender. My name is Captain Ibrahim Traoré. I do not speak with the polish of career diplomats. I do not with the cologne of corporate boardrooms. I was not trained in Washington, nor groomed in Geneva. I speak from the battlefield, where my people bleed, and the earth still remembers. I speak on behalf of a nation long treated like a debtor's prison. And today, I speak directly to the International Monetary Fund, not with trembling hands, but with a voice forged in centuries of African pain and now, African awakening. For too long, the IMF has posed as a benevolent doctor, offering treatment to sick economies. But we have learned, through blood and suffering, that your medicine often kills the patient. You arrive with smiles and promises, but your loans are poisoned arrows wrapped in clauses. You speak of stabilization, but bring strangulation. You preach reform, but demand obedience to foreign models, designed in distant labs, never meant to work on African soil. But we are not your experiment. We are not pawns in your economic chess game. Burkina Faso and all of Africa is waking up, and when we wake, we do not ask permission to breathe. I do not come here to beg for debt cancellation. I do not come to plead for relief. I come to speak the truth no African leader has dared speak aloud. We no longer accept economic models that turn our people into beggars while our gold lines Western vaults. We will not dance to the rhythm of conditionalities that gut our public services, destroy our farms, and drive our youth into exile. We will not accept that good governance means handing over our land and resources to foreign firms dressed as saviors. Today, we begin a new dialogue, no longer between debtor and lender, but between equals, between truth and falsehood, between freedom and control. This is not a press release. This is a reckoning, and it begins now. Let us speak without euphemism. The kind of debt you offer Africa is not development. It is bondage. It is modern-day slavery, dressed in suits and spreadsheets. You call it structural adjustment. We call it structural punishment. You call it financial discipline. We call it generational despair. You speak of partnership, but when one partner profits while the other bleeds, it is not partnership. It is plunder. How can a continent rich in gold, uranium, cobalt, and fertile land be poor? How can a land that powers global industry not feed its own children? We are told it is mismanagement, corruption, incompetence. Yes, Africa has its wounds, but many of those wounds were inflicted by the very hands now offering us Band-Aids soaked in interest. Let me show you what this debt looks like, not on your PowerPoint, but on our streets. It is children studying by candlelight because our power grid was privatized and priced beyond reach. It is hospitals with no antibiotics, no beds, because your conditions require we slash health budgets to qualify for more debt. It is a generation of graduates holding degrees and no future, because jobs vanished under the blade of liberalization. Worst of all, it is dignity broken. Your repayment plans are not economic formulas. They are death sentences. You lend us $500 million and demand $2 billion back. Through interest, restructuring fees, currency controls, and clauses that steal our assets. You say, but you signed the contracts. I ask, is it consent when the patient is bleeding and you're the only one holding medicine with a price tag? Is it choice when the gun is not pointed at your head, but at the starving child behind you? This is not consent. This is economic coercion. This is not development. It is domination. This is not globalization. It is neo-colonialism in financial form. To speak of sovereignty in Africa today is to speak of a dream deferred. We may have flags and anthems, but true independence remains under siege. The IMF does not govern us, but it drafts our budgets. It does not vote in our elections, but its approval determines whether we stand or fall. You claim neutrality, but your influence rewrites our laws, shapes our leadership, and cages our vision. This is not financial aid. It is political engineering. You arrive not with bombs, but with blueprints. Yet the damage is just as devastating. Behind your polite language lies a silent weapon, conditionality. Cut subsidies. Liberalize markets. Devalue your currency. These are not recommendations. They are orders with a price. Refusal means collapse. You have become the architects of our internal affairs. We were promised that structural adjustment would bring growth. Instead, it brought dependency. We were told austerity would end corruption. Instead, it ended hope. We were promised a free market would lift us. Instead, it lifted our wealth and flew it offshore. And when our people protest, when they cry out in hunger and desperation, you retreat into the shadows. You wash your hands. You claim, we are just advisors. But history is watching. From Ghana to Zambia, Senegal to Kenya, we've seen this script. Water privatized. Food imports undercut farmers. Education budgets slashed while debt repayments soar. And when we resist, our credit ratings are downgraded. Our currencies are attacked. Our leaders are branded radicals, populists, unstable. But I ask you, what is more radical than forcing a nation to choose between feeding its people and paying interest on loans it never benefited from? What is more unstable than a society where you see no future, no work, no hope, no reason to believe in democracy? Your influence has become a veto on our destiny. But we are not just victims. We are rising. A new wind is blowing across Africa. We are reclaiming the right to govern ourselves, on our terms, in our languages, for our people. We will no longer cut schools before taxing billionaires. We will not allow foreign consultants to write our futures while our thinkers starve. To the IMF, I say this clearly. We will be sovereign, even if it means slower growth, because it will be our growth. Even if it brings hardship, because it will be for our freedom. Africa does not need masters. Africa needs partners. And if you cannot walk beside us as equals, then step aside. Because this time, we are moving forward, and the puppet strings are being cut. We were born into a system we did not build, a global order forged by empire. Its rules etched in contracts, its power sealed in institutions that still bind us. When the colonizers left, they did not leave justice behind. They left frameworks designed to extract, not empower. And the problem is not just the IMF. It is the entire architecture of global power. Trade laws, credit ratings, financial norms. They were built not by nature and necessity, but by powerful men to protect their interests. They defined what value means. They rewrote the rules whenever it suited them. And they locked Africa in second place. But I stand here today not as a victim, but as a warning. This system is breaking, and we will no longer prop it up with our silence. We are done playing by rules we did not write. We are done following paths that lead only to more chains. We are done asking permission to be free. Africa is rising, and we are bringing the storm with us. Let me ask a simple question. Why is it that a continent holding 60% of the world's arable land still imports food? Why do we, who sit atop mountains of gold, rivers of oil, and veins of lithium, still rely on foreign aid to survive? The truth is plain. The game was never fair. We were not welcomed into a just global system. We were assigned roles in someone else's script. They made us exporters of raw materials, not builders of industry. We were cast as gatherers, not architects. They told us, you grow, they refine. You dig, they profit. You borrow, they lend. And every time we try to rewrite the script, punishment follows. Credit ratings fall. Sanctions are threatened. Investments are withdrawn. Media begins its smear campaign. Suddenly we are unstable. But tell me, what is more unstable than a world where a continent of 1.4 billion people contributes the least to climate change but suffers the most from it? What is more irrational than a system where the cocoa farmers in Côte d'Ivoire, who feed the world's sweet tooth, cannot afford a single bar of chocolate? What is more unjust than the colonizers of yesterday lecturing us on governance while they protect the stolen wealth of African elites in their offshore banks? And yet they call this order meritocracy. They say, work harder. They say, be more transparent. They say, attract investment. But they never say this. The scoreboard was rigged from the beginning. The rules were never neutral. And the referees, the WTO, the World Bank, the IMF, have always served the same team. Let me give you an example. When we try to support our farmers with subsidies, they tell us we're distorting the market. Yet the U.S. and Europe spend hundreds of billions annually on their own agriculture and call it protection. When we attempt to build state industries to create jobs, we're told it's inefficient. But the richest corporations in their countries were born from government funding, born from NASA, from defense contracts, from taxpayer-funded research. When we push back against exploitive mining contracts, they say we're hostile to business. But I ask, isn't it more hostile to extract $100 worth of minerals and leave behind $3 worth of schools? Africa is not asking for pity. We are demanding fairness. Not charity, justice. Not handouts, equal footing. We are the youngest continent on Earth, and yet the global economy treats us like all we have to offer is our labor and our land. But our greatest wealth is not buried beneath our soil, it walks upon it. Our wealth is in our people. I recall the old saying, the system works. And I ask for whom? It is time we stop playing by rules written without us. It is time we began rewriting those rules in our own image. We are not looking to burn bridges, but we refuse to cross any that lead only to more chains. Let me be clear, we are not broken. The system is. And if it refuses to change, then we, descendants of Sankara, of Nkrumah, of Lumumba, will change it ourselves. We did not come this far just to survive. We came to thrive, and we will no longer wait for permission. Now that we have named the injustice, let us speak of rebirth. Africa does not need to beg for a seat at the table. We do not need another savior, another lecture, another loan with hidden strings. What we need is a new path, one built by our own hands, guided by our own vision, rooted in our own values. Self-reliance is not isolation. It is not arrogance. It is dignity. It is choosing to stand on our own feet, even when the ground beneath us is shaking. And let me say again, we are not rejecting partnership. We are redefining it. For too long, partnership has meant dependence. It has meant waiting for approvals, for grants, for aid, while our people starve, while our youth flee across oceans. That is not partnership. That is bondage wrapped in smiles. So we must build differently, and it starts with new principles. We must feed ourselves. No nation can call itself sovereign if it cannot feed its people. What is independence if a drought in another land can raise the price of bread in ours? We must see agriculture not as survival, but as strategy. We must move from seed sovereignty to food security, from subsistence to abundance. Let every village be a fortress of grain. Let every farmer become a nation builder. We must educate not just to pass exams, but to liberate minds. The most dangerous weapon colonialism left was not the gun, it was a syllabus. It taught us about foreign kings, but not our own heroes. It praised foreign thinkers, but ignored African science, innovation, and wisdom. Let us teach coding alongside crops. Let our classrooms raise children who know their worth and shape their destiny. We must process what we produce. We must send out finished goods, not just raw materials. Africa must no longer export value and import poverty. It is not enough to own the mines. We must own the refineries, the factories, the labels, the profits. We must protect local industries, nurture African businesses, and end the addiction to imports. This is how we create jobs. This is how we build wealth that stays home. Let the world come to Africa to buy, not to take. We must unite or perish. A fragmented Africa is a vulnerable Africa. 54 voices cannot negotiate with strength, but one voice, one market, one currency, one policy can shift the world. Let us build the roads that link Lagos to Dar. Let us build data centers to guard our knowledge. Let us build alliances to guard our peace. ECOWAS, SADC, the AU, these must evolve from clubs of rhetoric into engines of action. No African nation can stand alone, but together we are a giant. And most importantly, we must trust our people. Too often, our leaders trust foreign advice over local genius. They fly thousands of miles to ask questions their own people have already answered. But the solutions are here, held by the hands of our youth, our women, our elders. Let us fund their ideas. Let us amplify their voices. Let us believe that the mechanic in Ouagadougou and the coder in Kigali are just as capable as any consultant in Paris. We will not be free until we trust our own to lead. My brothers and sisters, we are not trying to recreate the West. We are building Africa, our Africa. We are not chasing old dreams. We are daring to dream anew. Self-reliance means we will stumble. We will make mistakes. But they will be our mistakes. And from them, we will rise. There is no savior coming. The Savior is already here, within us, in our hands, in our hearts, in our unity. We must stop waiting, stop blaming, start building. Not tomorrow, not after the next summit. Now, Africa will not rise by speeches alone. It will rise by soil-stained hands, ink-stained notebooks, and steel-stained factories. Let us take back what has always been ours, not with violence, but with vision, not through hate, but through healing, not through begging, but through building. This is the dawn of self-reliance, and we will never return to chains. You are not powerless. To my people, young and old, urban and rural, schooled and unschooled, you are not powerless. They have made you believe that power belongs only to the men in suits, speaking into microphones, that the future is decided in tall buildings far away, that your life is shaped by forces you cannot touch. But hear me now. Real power does not begin at the top. It begins with you. It begins with a farmer who rises before dawn, with the mother who feeds her children before herself, with the honest man who refuses to steal even when hungry, with the girl who walks 5 miles every day to learn, with the street preacher, the mechanic, the nurse, the teacher, the tailor, the water carrier. You are the foundation. You are the pulse. You are Africa. But here's the tragedy. You've been taught to wait, to hope, to applaud when crumbs fall from the table, to fear asking questions, even when those in power fail to serve you. This must end. We must tear down the invisible walls, the ones that separate rulers from the ruled, the educated from the ignored, the elite from the everyday hero. Because leadership is not domination. It is service. And service without accountability is tyranny in disguise. Understand why they prefer you silent. These institutions we confront today, they do not just target governments. They rely on your exhaustion, on your silence, on your distraction. They thrive when you believe politics is not your business. But know this, every price hike, every closed clinic, every stolen acre of land is a political act. And if you do not engage, if you do not ask, if you do not resist, you become part of your own oppression. But once the people awaken, the tide shifts. When the youth refuse to be silenced, when the mothers speak truth to power, when the elders remember the strength of their voices, no IMF, no dictator, no puppet can stand against them. Revolution is not always fire in the streets. Sometimes it is quiet. It is a student registering to vote, a market woman refusing a bribe, neighbors fixing a road without permission. That too is revolution. This is your mandate, not just to resist, but to rebuild, not just to protest, but to participate. And to do that, we must reclaim what is sacred. The right to question, the right to organize, the right to lead. Africa is not waiting anymore. Africa is rising. Form your unions. Build your cooperatives. Stand not as scattered individuals, but as one voice, thunderous and unshakable. You have the right to know who owns your land, where your taxes go, how your nation is shaped behind closed doors. Knowledge is not a privilege granted. It is a right earned by birth. With knowledge, you claim your power, and with power, you claim your future. You have the right to refuse. Refuse injustice. Refuse manipulation. Refuse to play the role they wrote for you in a theater designed for your silence. Resistance is not a crime. It is your inheritance. You have the right to dream, not of escape, but of transformation. Dream of an Africa worthy of your children, an Africa that lifts its head high not through borrowed glory, but through truth-built triumph. Begin building it now, brick by brick, thought by thought. This is not a struggle meant for government alone. Yes, we must demand courage in leadership. Yes, corruption must be cut at the root. Yes, puppet regimes must fall. But a just Africa cannot rise on political will alone. It requires a people awakened, a people who will no longer settle for less than dignity, a people who no longer fear the shadow of power, but instead shine with the light of purpose. You are not spectators in history. You are its authors. Every act matters. Every whisper, every chant, every action, no matter how small, contributes to the chorus of change. To the youth, you are not leaders in waiting. You are not the hope of tomorrow. You are the fire of now. Do not wait for funding. Do not wait for permission. Do not wait until you're older, until you're richer, until you're told you are ready. You are ready. Begin now. Speak now. Organize now. Build now. Because if you don't shape your destiny, someone else will sell it. To every young African who can hear me, to every elder who held the truth in silence, to every mother whose empty plate hold a prayer, to every barefoot child with dreams bigger than the sky, listen to me now. The age of African reckoning has begun, not with vengeance, but with truth, not with hate, but with clarity, not with violence, but with unwavering purpose. Forged through centuries of wounds, we rise, not to ask for a place, but to build our own, not to beg for crumbs, but to shape our own harvest. We were once told we were buried, but they forgot we are seeds. Let this be heard in every boardroom, every embassy, every summit that thought Africa would never awaken. We are awake, and we are coming for what was taken. To the youth, you are the builders. You are not missing. You are not too late. You are not forgotten. You are the engineers of a new era. You are the soul of a continent reborn. Your mind is your weapon. Your past is your shield. Your mission is sacred. Reclaim, rebuild, restore. From this day, let no leader speak for Africa while bowing to foreign thrones. Let no contract be signed that sells the future for today's illusion. Let no flag wave if it hides the suffering of its people. Let us sign a new covenant, a covenant between the soil and its stewards, between the ancestors and their children, between the vision of yesterday and the victory of tomorrow. We will not repeat captivity. We will not inherit chains. Our children will not be born into debt, but into dignity. This is our sacred promise. This moment is not about me. It is not about one man, one speech, one protest. It is about a people rediscovering themselves. A spiritual fire that foreign hands cannot smother. Let it be etched into every heart. We will rise not as shadows, but as visionaries. We will forgive, but we will not forget. We will reach out in peace, but we will never kneel. Africa, remember your name. You are the drumbeat of the world, the first dawn, the beating heart of all humanity. You are the whisper of the ancestors and the roar of tomorrow. Africa, remember. Let the lions awaken. Let the rivers speak. Let the soil rejoice. For we are no longer silent. We are no longer sold. We are no longer asleep. And so I stand as a son of this land, as a servant of its people, as one voice among millions. And I declare before God and before history, Africa shall rise. Africa shall heal. Africa shall lead. Not through domination, but through destiny. Not through vengeance, but through vision. Not through conquest, but through the unbreakable will of a people who finally remember who they are. And may the ancestors bear witness. May the children walk free. And may the world remember this day, the day Africa awakened,